Hey, it's Millie, and welcome to the Generalist World podcast. This is a show where I interview people from the Generalist World community, and we talk things like the future of work, careers, predictions, their hot takes, and really understand what their squealy careers have looked like. So if you're a generalist who feels like they're living in a specialized world, this is the podcast for you. I start every episode for some reason with this little no music dance, and it works a treat. It works a treat. Simran, what's up? Welcome to the Generalist World Pod.
Hi, it's great to be here and to be chatting with you and to be dancing right now together.
All the things. Simran, so I'm trying to decide where to start because you are a part of GW, you're part of the fabric, but you're also the mastermind wizard behind the automations of GW. So there's a lot of threads that we could pull on. Let's start with your career story. Let's ground people. So they're like, who is this? Who is this? And what are we going to learn from Simran today? So when you look back at your career, how do you kind of think about telling that story?
Oh man, I love that question. Honestly, I feel like my career story begins way before my actual career, like way before I was getting properly paid and I graduated college and all of those things. Because one of the first ways I earned money was I opened my own baking business. And this was when I was in middle school and high school. And essentially, I had just discovered baking. I discovered that I liked it. Unfortunately, what I also discovered is that I did not like eating a lot of desserts, and I lived with a mother who also did not have a sweet tooth. So I was like, what do I do with all of this? And then I started taking it to high school and middle school, and everyone really enjoyed it. And then some of the parents were like, oh, we're hosting something, you should, bring it by. And then I started getting paid, and it was very small. I definitely did not make any profit from it, but that was what the start of my career. That was me being like, oh, I am now making money off of something I have created. So that felt good. And this kind of going into different directions that, most people I knew were not happy with, continued because I did the same thing when I was in undergrad. I did a lot of internships, which were in nonprofits and then in the copywriting world and then in just being in actual think tanks, being a journalist. So I did all of that. And at the same time, I was also like, oh, there's this startup I really like. Let me just write to them and see if they're interested and if they want a research partner. And I was completely underqualified, but the guy was like, you've been hounding us for, 5 months. You clearly are interested. So I became a research assistant at an AI startup. This was back in 2019. So it was way before ChatGPT and all of that. But then the career story really, really begins. I graduated grad school and I graduated in the middle of the pandemic. Not even the middle, the start of the pandemic. So no one knew what was going to happen. And I definitely had a difficult time getting a job. And there was one job that I did get and I was like, no, this is definitely not working. It was very, very shady and I was like, I'm gonna walk away from this. Packed my bags and I was like, I'm gonna move to San Francisco. Literally just on a day I was like, I'm just gonna move. I can't do this. There's no opportunities in the city. And then I was like, what can I do? And that was really where the generalist journey really kicked off for me, because I reached out to everyone with any skill set that I had. I ended up creating games for some people. I ended up improving someone's edtech journey. And then what happened was there was one fintech company that I really admired and I've been following. And it turned out that the founder and we just kept showing up at the same events over and over. And I kept being like, I have ideas for your company. And I would just reach out to her all the time. And at some point she was like, okay, you clearly have a lot of thoughts about where this should go. Do you want to be the first ever employee of the company? And I was like, yes, I do. I love that. So I did that for a long time. But obviously the generalist itch was not fully satisfied. And then I ended up creating a program at a VC company. And their thing was they were just like, oh, we want to do something for women. And I was like, okay, cool. What do you want to do? And they're like, we have no idea. I was like, okay, that's interesting. You definitely want to do something. But it's like, okay, well, I'm happy. And then, so I had my full-time job. I had clients on the side. And then I also had this extra 30 plus hours I was putting into building a whole new arm for a venture capital company. Continued doing that for some time until I was like, okay, I'm doing like 100 hours a week. I am burning out. This is a lot. Let's take a step back. So I'm continuing now. I still work in fintech. That is still my full-time job. At the same time, I'm like, oh, let's work with influencers to get their podcasts out. Let's work with Generalist World, like a mission I really believe in, to make sure the automations are running smoothly and the community is happy. Let's work with people to, write their newsletters and build their brands on Substack. So I ended up just being like following my nose, being like, this is something that interests me. Let's go forth and let's see what we can make out of this curiosity.
Wow. The clear thread here is your ability to just put yourself out there and to shoot your shot again and again and again and just be like quite relentless. And I say that with like the utmost respect and like admiration of like the relentless pursuit. And honestly, I think you're on to a winner there, because we're clearly seeing that this current system of getting hired where it's like the easy apply on LinkedIn and there's like 4,000 roles. Like, what advice do you have for people who want to follow in your footsteps of first identifying opportunities and then like what are some things that have worked really well?
I will say, so easy apply, quite frankly, I think it's barely ever worked for me. I have seen a few people with very, very specialized skills that it's worked quite well for. But even quite well is like they'll apply to like 100 jobs and they'll get a call back. And in this economy, that's what quite well means. Like, yeah, okay, cool. Well, it's literally 1 in 100. But for me, one thing that always has stood me in good stead has just been, I'm curious about a lot. Like, I used the word curiosity earlier as well, and it still stands. I'm curious about a lot of things. I believe in a lot of things. I have a lot of optimism for ways the world could be better. And so when I see companies that are like, playing into that in any way possible, I'm always like, let's reach out. Let's make it personalized. That is, I have seen the number of DMs I receive also, which are just, I'm like, why are you reaching out to me? Someone reached out to me recently for a product for my university that I graduated from. And I was like, you do realize I was a student there. I wasn't doing anything. Like, I can't influence their decision-making processes. So yeah, be careful on that. But yeah, always reach out, be genuine. Reach out a couple of times, honestly. Like, persistence up to a level is really good to have. Give before you take, always. Like, give ideas, give help, see where your skills fit the gap, or even if you can send them opportunities which have nothing to do with you, but just building those relationships is a very good way to go about it.
And how are you deciding what to pitch in for? So let's say you don't actually know the company. Let's say you just like the mission. Take Generalist World, for example. I can't even really remember how you actually came into the like automation side of things, but like, your skills. So how do you bridge that gap from, what you're good at, but you don't maybe yet know exactly what the company needs? What does that bridge look like?
Oh, I love that. So for Generalist World, I actually do remember, which was, I think you asked a lot of questions about automations on Twitter. And I was like, oh, I have ideas. And then I think it was literally just me commenting on every third post of yours and being like, this is how you should build this thing. And I think like me showing that, like I had some background and it really helped. But with other companies where obviously, yeah, you have no idea where they're going for, what they're going for is do some research, look at what they've been putting out on social media, on their blogs, if the founders are putting anything out, where the industry is headed. So what are the problems that are top of mind for the industry and also for the stage the founders are at? So for example, I work at a seed stage fintech, and it's like, okay, seed stage fintechs usually they care a lot about compliance and legalities and making in like this is the part where they're starting to scale. So how can my processes fit into that? That is so just do a bunch of research. And by the way, if your research yields nothing, it doesn't hurt to like reach out to some people in the company, even if it's like whatever team you're looking at. If it's like a tiny company, then of course it could be like the founder themselves. If it's a bigger company, then reach out to like a team you're interested in and just be like, let's see, like, what are those like just grab a coffee, sponsor the coffee for the person if you can. That's always a really good incentive for them to hop on the call and just be like, okay, what problems are you facing? Like, look, if you can't figure it out, then be willing to listen and to learn from them and then slot it into your overall pitch.
Sponsor a coffee. Love that. And also, I feel like you need to have some kind of brand, like, I don't know if it's like a Substack or something, where it's like, I have ideas. Because this is like another common thread where you're like, I have ideas, and you so do. I know this from working with you that I'm just like, Simran, this is it. And you're like, I have ideas. And it's just like heaven. It's so clear. The bullet points, they're numbered. You link things. I'm like, oh, your brain works very differently to mine. What kind of generalist do you think you are?
I think I know there's like archetypes and some I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. But at the end of the day, I'm a connector, so or an integrator, so I just make sure that I think it happens in so many companies that I've worked at is that everyone is in silos and doing their separate things. And then at like a quarterly meeting, it'll come out like, oh, this person's been doing this one thing that this other person, does not like and actually does have to sign off on and had no idea the whole time. And so I have to be like, okay, how do we make sure that everyone is in the loop at an earlier stage without like overburdening people with information, without making it like rain down on their heads and having it create another headache for them. So my strength is just making sure like, okay, everyone's communicating in the exact right way and in the exact right amounts. So we can just like do it and then get on with our separate silo jobs.
Yes. And what do you think companies, particularly maybe startups, mostly get wrong when they try and approach this?
The last decade or so of startups, early stage startups, just the whole move fast, break things, it is useful. I will never deny that, of course, we should be moving fast, we should be shipping fast. It's very helpful. At the same time, I think it's just led to people focusing in very much on their job role versus looking at like, okay, my job is not the job. My job is what moves this company forward. What is the mission of the company and how does anything that I do push this in the right direction? And part of it is like, yeah, the company mission, but also it's like, okay, as I'm doing something, I want to make sure, for example, if I am working in marketing, I don't want to put something out and then not and like the customer success person when he is or the salesperson when they're reached out to be like, oh, I saw this thing on your marketing blog, and the salesperson is like, what are you talking about? What is this? What is she putting out there? Right? So it's really important to one, make sure like you're always in line with the end of day, like the business goals, but also to know that you are not the only person in the company. Even if you are the only person in the company, if you're the founder, then okay, yeah, sure, go for it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But if you have even one other person on the team, always make sure there is some system to keep people talking to each other. So make sure the right hand talks to the left hand and they're just like working together.
That is fantastic. And oh my gosh, if companies simply followed that advice, I think there would be a lot less mess, particularly in startups and in the world. I'm curious about your move to San Francisco. I didn't realize this was just like, I don't know if you would call it on a whim, but like it's such a radical shift where you're like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to SF. What's that experience been like for you? And do you think when you look back, would you do it all over again? Is there anything you do differently?
So it was kind of a whim. What had happened was I had just quit that one very, very ill-fitting job. It was bad. I cannot overstate. It was just like, they were like, oh, you have to come into the office every day during COVID. And if you are late, we will dock your pay for the entire day. It was very insane. And they're like, it's better to come into the office sick and be sent home. And I was like, in COVID times? Like, no, I want to earn money, not lose it by being sent to the hospital. So it was that was the company. And when I quit, I was like, okay, what do I want to do? And I was in Pittsburgh. I was in the East Coast at the time. And then I thought about it and it was like every opportunity that I'm interested in keeps leading me to two places. It's either going to be New York or it's going to be San Francisco. And I had a little bit more of a network in San Francisco, and I had one client there, one whole client who did not require me to move there, by the way. It was not even close to a full-time. But I was like, okay, something is calling me there. Let's do it. And so I packed up my bags and I was like, let's take this 3-day train ride to San Francisco. I was there, I was in a train for 3 days straight, Pittsburgh to San Fran. I didn't realize how like out of the box it was until literally a week ago when someone on my team found out and they were like, that's so intriguing. Would I do it again? I would definitely do it again. In fact, I would do it sooner. I feel like I dilly-dallied because I was like, oh, I had like this guilt of like, oh, well, I have a job and like moving costs money. And I, I went back and forth quite a lot in my own mind, about quitting or about doing something different. So, quite frankly, if I had to do it again, I would just be like, yep, I'm going to pack my bags. I'm going to go. Now, the thing I would do slightly differently is I would make sure I had even more of a network there than I did. I was lucky. I had some like people from, university there, which even though I didn't know them, just having that university tie breaks the ice quite easily. But I would have made sure to reach out, form that network, have a net for when I moved there, and then it could just be like, okay, if I need to, if I'm in trouble, there should be someone there. Like, I definitely took a bit of a risk. I was lucky that nothing terrible really happened, but if it had, I would have been in a soup. So that is a tip I would say to anyone before you go to a new city. Make sure you know new people there.
Yeah, build your network before you need it is a classic,
Yes.
wonderful piece of advice. It's quite funny you mentioned the train because I did a very similar journey. I went from San Francisco to New York. I went the other way. It took me 30 days, but I stopped on the way. Like I stopped in Austin and Boston and Chicago. It's an adventure. And it's funny. I actually remember telling like my friends in the US, you know, I've caught this train and I remember people looking at me like I had two heads. Like, why? Why? I'm like, it's an adventure. You get to see like the real America, you know?
Yeah. Yes, 100%. I love train journeys. They're so fun for me. I love the views and just like I enjoy the slowness actually. I don't think everything in life has to be like, oh, you hop in an airplane and what's like the easiest, fastest connecting flight. It's like, no. Some things should be slow. Some things you should enjoy the journey. So yeah, I love train ride. In fact, I was journaling one day, and one of the prompts was, "What would you do if you were 65 and you had money?" And I ended up jotting down all of these like train journeys that I've been seeing on the internet, and I'm like, I want to do these. I'm not rich, and quite frankly, it would need me to retire and take like long stretches of holidays. But I want to do this. Trains are so much fun.
We are kindred spirits. Plus one, same to all of the above. If there's any train nerds listening, reach out and say hi so we can all geek out together. It's clearly the best way to travel. So you've had this amazing kind of squiggly path. When I ask the question, I hope this doesn't give you anxiety or like flashbacks to when you're growing up, but what do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh. I think it depends on the definition of grown up. Definitely, like 65 is grown up. 35 also to me is very grown up. So I'm gonna stick with the 35 for now. I think, and I want to continue working on missions that excite me, and those will change over time. Definitely, I'm more passionate about a lot of things now than I was 5 years ago, but I want to continue contributing to those in any way I can. Hopefully, honestly, as an entrepreneur or as someone who coaches people, just because then I have a much wider reach with a very large breadth of companies and folks. So that would be really good for me.
Great answer. Great answer. I'm throwing the hard questions, just like left fielding the hard questions to you. So you're nailing it. So right now you have this full-time job and you're also, I think you have like a couple of clients that you juggle as well as like having this personal brand. What is your best advice on how to juggle all of these things without dropping any of these things?
Yeah, it definitely took a lot of trial and error. There were times when, as I said before, I was burnt out. I was sleeping 4 hours, 3 hours a night, just trying to do everything. I think, okay, I'm lucky enough to only take on clients that I'm really interested in. I don't, and this is a position of privilege. I will always stick to that. But I don't have to I don't have to work solely for like push myself just for the paycheck. So for me, I can say no to certain clients where I'm like, no, I don't think I'm the best fit, but I can refer you to someone else who is. That's very helpful. It helps me draw my boundaries and keep a limit to all the things, again, that I am just so constantly intrigued by. So that's very good. The other thing is I set aside certain days. So again, back when I was very, very burnt out, which had, lots, like it took years for me to, properly recover from that and understand how not to be burnt out. But now I have days where I'm like, okay, 3 days of the week I am going to sit and I'm going to do only client work, and that is it. And then other days I'm like, okay, now is when I focus on other parts of my life that I love, which is physical exercise or baking. I literally baked scones like the other day, like, or any other hobbies that I have, go out and meet friends, all of that. So just having that very clean division and leaning into it guilt free. I feel like this is always the problem. Again, we are generalists, we're interested in everything. We're like, every time we make a list, we're like, oh, I should be doing this and this and this. Oh, and I could be doing that, and that would be more efficient. And blah, blah, blah. And then we like spiral ourselves into exhaustion. So it's just good to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to be working on, and feel zero guilt about the decisions that you're making. And that honestly is like the biggest way to unlock like any kind of balance, because now you're like, okay, no, this is what I've decided to work on, and I'm gonna go forward with that.
Oh, so important. It's balancing this like curiosity and like, I want to soak it all in. I want to know it all, with like, okay, but there is a limit to everything. There's a limit to everything. And I've realized in the last year or so, there's like a real liberation that comes with being like, I can't do everything. And that's kind of freeing because I
Yeah.
simply cannot. And it's like when you really live that and it soaks into your bones and you're like, oh yeah, okay, cool. I can't do everything. So now I'm kind of free to do the things that I'm prioritizing the most and which are most important.
Yes, exactly. Very, very important. The other thing is like honestly, like have fun with the things that you do. Even if like they're things that are traditionally boring or like are a burden to you, like job applications are the worst. I will be the first, but they're not interesting at all. But it's like, okay, whatever you do, can you make it? What's like the minimum viable way to do this? Is it like 5 minutes a day? Do it for 5 minutes a day. Is there any way you can make it more interesting? If you want to send out a job application to some totally nonsense company that's, paying you 3 pennies for 5 hours of work, and just send out something very funny just to be like, ha ha ha, this is like a cover letter that's absolutely nonsense. Do it. Bringing some levity into every single piece of work that you do, and, not taking it too seriously, very, very helpful. Really takes the pressure off.
Yes. While we're kind of in this thread of efficiency, I would love to get your automation brain, because to me this is like magic. I think we're now running nearly 10,000 zaps via like Zapier a month, and it's like, wow, this has completely changed how companies would have ran even like 5 or 10 years ago. Now there's just so much potential with this automation. And so I guess my first question on this is, if someone is just dipping their toe into the world of automation, they've just found Zapier, what would your advice be to help them find their feet?
Experiment with it 100%. Like go into it, just make like some kind of nonsensical zaps to see what works and where the breaks are. And the second is, there are some people on Twitter, and I'll send them to you, Millie, and then like, just like some resources like, to follow. And then it's just like they're just good inspiration. They're not, they don't give you very specific tips and tricks, but it's just good inspiration because they're also working in that world of automation. But honestly, I would just say start with like, yeah, like create the messiest things. It's okay if they break. That's kind of the point. Push it until it breaks, and then you'll realize the limits, and then like scale it back.
That's great. Push it until it breaks and scale it back. And the other side of the coin of automation, AI, you're in San Francisco, you're probably seeing this bubble from the inside. What is your predictions? Where do you think AI is headed?
I think it's definitely, and I'm echoing what everyone else is saying, is that it's going to change the way all of us work and live. I'm going to stick to the career part for now because I feel like the life part is just too big for me to talk about. But I think we're going to be divided into two very stark camps now. like right now everything's a spectrum. We're just sort of like, some people are slightly more generalist, some people are slightly more specialist, but now I think we're going to reach something where people are very, very specialist or very, very generalist. And you can choose, and obviously there's a mix, right? I am a generalist in a lot of things, but I am a specialist in 1 to 2 areas. But that is going to be important, like the ability to be able to switch contexts, switch tasks, and have a breadth of knowledge is going to be very, very necessary. At the same time, I would never discount the ability to really go in deep on one thing. And that doesn't have to be like, I don't know, astronomy or whatever, right? That's not the point, but it's like even your lived experience is something that is, you have lived with yourself for many, many years, and even that is a specialist topic. So yeah, I would
Interesting.
encourage people to always be willing to go faster, just like, yeah, willing to learn the art of context switching. That is not something that all of us have right now. It requires practice and it requires effort to be able to jump from like, I was thinking about this and now I'm just going to work on this. A lot of people can't do it, but I would really recommend that we do that. And the second thing is, everyone needs to improve fact checking. I've seen too many things generated by ChatGPT, which I'm like, yes, that you are right. Like, you have a source from somewhere on the internet, but that source is not accurate. Please stop publishing this stuff. So we all just need to get better about that part, because
Yeah.
ChatGPT treats most sources as equal, but they are not, and they are not, they don't have integrity. So always know how to check your sources.
Critical thinking, right? Like critical thinking when knowledge is infinite and cheap, then there
Yeah.
has to be some kind of filter, and that has to be a human filter of like your own brain, your own experiences, being like, huh, what about this? Like, is this true? What is the source? Yeah, I think that's going to be so underrated.
Exactly. And this is a word that's coming out a lot on social media these days, which is like taste is the ultimate differentiator. And unfortunately, now the word itself has become meaningless because now no one knows what taste means because everyone's talking about it. But essentially, taste is just, what is your opinion? What is your background, your lore, and how you lean into that? That's very, very important. So while you can outsource work to AI, and you should, of course, like we want to get more efficient things we put out there, don't outsource yourself in your experiences, in your thinking, and your emotions to AI, because that's not going to be helpful for creating a defensible barrier. At the end of the day, the thing you contribute is being you, and you really want to lean into that.
Yes, personality, brand, character. You're seeing it now. Like LinkedIn, specifically in
Yeah.
the last like week or so, I'm like, oh, I'm finding it difficult because the law, I loved that. The law and the personality shining through, it's like it exists somewhere. Sometimes you see people being like genuine, but you got to like sift through a lot of basically algorithm baiting.
AI slop, yeah, yeah, definitely. You got to go through a lot of things where people are like, oh, this is what I should put out there. It's like, yeah, there is stuff you should put out, but I see why you think that that's what the algorithm rewards, but it doesn't, not really. And even if the algorithm might reward it in certain ways, the people never will. And because we were talking about brands, I'm gonna just like take it in that context. I remember I had someone once tell me, like, oh, you should use XYZ tips, and then you'll, get so many more likes on LinkedIn. And I was like, but that's not my goal here. Like, the point of posting, everyone has different goals, by the way. If your goal is to get a lot of likes, there are ways to do that. My goal was, I want to form a small community of people, or not small, but it has to be a community of people who believe in me and who I believe in, and then we can actually, talk together versus just like a lot of likes that don't lead anywhere. Like, I want to build relationships. I want to have the social part of social media. And so I post a little differently, and I interact differently on LinkedIn, right? And it's that decision of like, this is what I want, this is my goal, was really helpful in helping me design my LinkedIn strategy. Because I did ask, of course, I did ask AI, right? There's all these tools which are like, oh, we'll help you build your brand strategy. And I was like, okay, let me ask. And I was like, I'm sure these would be very successful, but none of these are doing the thing that I actually want my presence to be like. So while yes, I take AI's help in, correcting some posts or something like that, at the end of the day, I'm like, no, but I am who I am, and my goal is my goal, and AI is just helping me along the journey, but it is not going to make my journey for me.
And exactly what that is the critical thinking in action. It's saying, okay, there is this option, but I understand my goal, I understand my why, I understand where I'm going, and so I'm going to leave it. I don't have to take it all.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I am curious from the time that you've spent within generalist world. I mean, you've kind of been an interesting point where you're like on the community side, but you've also spent quite a bit of time with our team. What has that experience been like for you?
It's been so great, honestly. I actually had a conversation with someone else who asked me the exact same question because she was considering joining Generalist World. And I was like, no, you should 100% do it. I so admire the work that you and Etcha do to make sure that the community is alive and kicking. Too many communities die out or seem forced, but this is truly a community where it is powered by the people and everyone is just always supportive, always helpful. I don't think there's been a single ask that I've put out there which hasn't been answered. Even if no one can answer that specific question, they'll always be like, "Oh, but I might know someone, let me think." And then they'll give me something to springboard myself off of. So yeah, General Stroll has always just it's been great from the day I joined. I've always really enjoyed it.
I love the powered by the people. That is spot on. That has been the goal since the beginning, and I think that's a mark of a strong community. And it's so interesting because we're now like 3 years into GW, and it's so interesting how like the focus of what the community needs at that time changes. It's actually very much like building a company as well. You get to these different stages and different levels and different phases, and then you're like, oh, we're in a growing pain, like we grew too fast or we're not growing fast enough. So yeah, I love the powered by the people because without exaggerating, without the people, there literally would be no generalist world.
Yeah, I'll give you like a very funny example, by the way. So I hosted the IGD last year in 2024, and about like 10 or 20 people RSVP'd. I don't remember the number. And I was like, great. Well, I'm hosting in the middle of the day, and usually, like only 30% of the people who RSVP really show up. Whatever. So I showed up at a cafe. I made zero bookings. I was like, it's gonna be 5 people. It's always what happens, right? No, more than the number of RSVPs turned up. There were 30, 35 people there. The cafe, like, I had to beg them to let us stay because the guy was just like, what are you guys doing? You've taken over this half this floor. And I was like, I had no idea. I'm really sorry. And we were like jamming together tables and making sure like there was space. But he was just like, okay, I mean, like, you can do it this time. Don't do it again. But he was kind of pissed off. I had to leave him a very, very huge tip to make sure I could like slide and get away with it. But this is what I mean about generalist world, right? Like powered by the people, and that again, most people don't show up to events, but IGD, no, everyone was there, everyone played the games, people are still in touch. It's kind of insane. So yeah, it's definitely it's a great mission, and the right kind of people are called to it, which is like the perfect confluence.
And this is such a good time to plug that IGD 2025 is happening on September 3rd. And we had what we thought was the big goal of doubling. We were like, okay, we had 20, 25 meetups last year. Let's go for 40. Maybe we'll hit 50. And before this call, I checked, and I think we have 88 different hosts. So across like 25 countries. Like it's wild and it is so fun because, as you said, get people together in real life and the connections. I don't know what it is about generalists. I think it needs to be studied, but you do get us in together in a room and it's like this palatable energy in a room and then people do stay in touch. It's all very like the connections are deeper, they're longer lasting. And I don't have the answers exactly to why that is. Maybe it's because people have felt for a long time like they don't fit in and suddenly they do fit in. And so it's all very like paradigm shifting. I'm not sure. But yeah, if you're listening, IGD is happening September 3rd. Very exciting.
I'm so excited. And I do agree. I think it is because people feel like they don't fit in. Because I played, so one of the things that I did in my event was I played generalist bingo. So, if you've like done something, you check it off. And then if you get it all, yay, you get bingo. But two of the squares I put on there was one, no one understands what you do. And two, people keep telling you to specialize. And I put those, and everyone in that group was just like, huge X over that. Like, even if, like, not everything was X, like, everyone didn't agree on everything, but those two, everyone was like, yep, that is it.
Interesting.
Cross.
That's a post, Simran. That's a post right there. My content brain is like, that's a post. Okay, so many nuggets are coming from this. I wonder, is there something that I haven't asked you while you've got the mic? Is there something you'd like to share, to talk about, something you're noodling on?
Yes. So, like I run the Little Experiments Club over in Generalist World. And the reason I really want to talk about that is because I think as generalists, again, we are all very curious. We all have many thoughts. We all have many things we want to try out. And something that keeps coming up from new joinees, people who've been in the club for some time, they already know the drill, but from new joinees, it's like, how do I decide? I have all of these things I want to do. And then again, like, you spiral, you get into exhaustion because there's just so much out there in the world. The world's a big place. But this format of experimenting and trying all these things that you want to do in little bites and organizing it, and also again just being aware that life is pretty long. We'll get to it. Not everything has to be done in the next 5 years. It's not like not everything's a resume builder for your next interview. So that format of having little experiments, knowing how to set them up, knowing how to see if this is successful or not, and reaching within yourself to be like, oh, is this something that I actually wanted to do, or am I just doing it for like XYZ reason? Which is also valid, but you should always know why you're doing a thing. That's been something I've loved doing with Generalist World, and it's been so interesting. And one of our members actually has been working on her experiment for 2 months now. And then her sign of victory was going to be end of August, but then she actually got it even before mid-August, and it was very exciting. She published something new, and it's like, yeah, like us giving each other accountability, encouragement, systems, processes, all of those things in one is amazing. It's like chef's kiss. So I could talk about experiments all day long. Definitely something that I love doing, but for anyone listening, I would always encourage, do follow your curiosity with little experiments.
I love that. And what we can do is in the show notes, I can link our Q&A that we had with Anne Lore, who is the author of Tiny Experiments. So I believe this is how it all spun out from, right? This was the seed.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, because I think in Jan 2025, I started experiments, and I was like, oh, I know Anne Lore's going to be coming to Generalist World. So just before that, I just want to give everyone like, here are some experiments that I ran. And this was, I think, back in May or June. I don't quite remember. And then people were like, oh, that's really interesting. So I have Anne Lore to thank because, just if she hadn't come on Generalist World, I would never have put my experiments out anywhere outside of my own journal. And the community would never have supported me. And then the Little Experiments Club would never have happened. So honestly, thank you, GW, and thank you, Anne Lore.
I love. And on that note, I think that's a wrap. What an amazing pod. Simran, you're fantastic. We're so grateful for you. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.